Mary's voice is a little where it's hooked in because of a slight throat infection, unfortunately. So,
I'll start by talking, but if it runs through halfway, I'll have to whisper again, so you'll have to be very patient, I'm afraid.
Okay. So, good luck. Okay. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about sort of the first few stories as well as what Mary did beforehand, and we found out her favourite story was Android's Atara because she was in it 3 times over. Could you, Mary, please tell us a bit more about Android's Atara in terms of filming it with the 3 of you? You know, was it a lot more difficult in terms of, were you quite a lot more because you were playing 3 different roles?
I was a little worried in rehearsal because we didn't seem to have as much time because the director, it was Michael Hayes, was very chatty, and he used to spend the rehearsals telling long, funny stories about his work in other TV series and things. And then, of course, Tom would start on his long, funny stories, and I'd say, listen, hey, wait a minute, I've got a lot to do here. Excuse me, couldn't get on with rehearsal. So I did get a bit worried in rehearsal because we didn't have very much time. Then when we got to the location, we didn't have, we did have quite a lot of location work, that's right. So in that sense, I was, yes, a little bit worried about playing the 3 parts, but there was a lot of technical stuff as well with, the android and the scenes where I had to play myself and the android and Princess thank you. That was all quite technical, and that sort of, you had to sort of stand and not move, and then play your own part and stand and not move because they had to do the CSO and whatever. So that was an interesting story from all the technical points of view as well.
What about, who actually came up with the idea? Did sort of Graham Williams come up to you one day, with like a few months or earlier, and say, hey, how would you like a story where you appear 3 times over, or was it something that they've been planning to do for a while, or just suddenly was the writer's idea? Do you know anything about the production behind it?
Well, the idea is actually a remake of The Prisoner of Zenda, which is a very famous story, and they've made several films of it. Not a remake, a kind of steal, if you like. So the guy who wrote it freely admitted that that's what he based it on. But no, I didn't know anything about it in advance. It was just when I got the script I realised I'd be playing 3 parts.
Okay, does anyone have any specific questions about Android's Atara that they'd like to ask Mary? Yes, just that.
What was it like working with Peter Jeffries, like Count Grendel?
The question was, what was it like working with, what's the name?
Peter Jeffries.
Peter Jeffries, who played the Count.
It was great working with Peter because, in fact, we both appeared in the Odessa File, but hadn't met. So I'd often seen him over the years. He's a very fine actor, and he's done a lot of work in England. And luckily, he was strong enough to lift me off the horse and carry me. That was the only thing I was worried about. Although I hope I'm not going to employ somebody who's going to drop me in the mud. But yes, we did have to do. In fact, he had a bad back. That was quite embarrassing because we had to do that take quite a few times. So I felt a bit sorry for poor Peter for that one. But no, he was very nice to work with.
Anything else on Android's Atara? Yes?
Were there any mishaps during filming?
Can you remember any mishaps during filming? Especially with the doubles and stuff, I guess, and triples?
Well, in fact, I told you the stories yesterday about the mishaps. There was one with Terry Walsh, which was when he was showing me a judo and my husband walked in. And the one with the fishing rod, I don't know if you were all here yesterday, so maybe you didn't hear the story. How many people haven't heard the story that I told you yesterday? Oh, quite a lot. Okay, I'll tell the story again. And those of you that have heard it, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat myself now. But Terry Walsh was the stunt guy, and I was talking to him one day about judo and martial arts and aikido, and he very kindly offered to give me a few start-off lessons, while we're hanging around. And he was demonstrating a hold. He had sort of one arm around my waist and one arm around my neck. I was sort of grappling in this hold, and my husband walked in. So that was one embarrassing moment. And the other one was when Tom threw a very valuable and expensive antique fishing rod from the archives of the BBC props department into the lake. And again, poor Terry Walsh had to dress up in his frog with that outfit and go and fetch it. So those were 2 memorable occasions which I remember from Andrew Zatara. But somebody asked me earlier, now where's my friend who asked me this question, and just as I was sitting outside, about embarrassing moments or disasters. And actually, I mean, it seems incredible, but over that long period of time that I worked on Doctor Who, we had very few mishaps. So I've never got any really funny stories to tell about what went terribly wrong, because a lot of it went right. So that was about all that happened on that one.
Do you remember the speech you gave Princess Estrella?
Does Mary remember the speech she gave as Princess Estrella?
Well, of course I do, word for word. I mean, if I didn't have such a bad voice, I'd get up and recite it for you now. Unfortunately, I can't. What do you mean, do I specifically remember it, or is there something in the speech that you think was... You just want to explain?
A number of people here probably have gotten hold of a BBC blooper reel, which has this bit where you're kneeling in front of whoever you're kneeling in front of and saying, I am blah 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 blah, and you get your words mixed up, and I think everyone will love it when Mary said, fuck, I've learned it. I think that's what the gentleman was asking.
How unusual for me. Well, love it. I'm sorry, but I can't remember that. I didn't even know they had a bleeper reel. I'd love to see it sometime. I mean, as an actor, there are certain things that you do remember. This is going off a tangent, and there are speeches, funnily enough, that I can remember from certain productions which are kind of stuck in my mind. But usually, you just forget everything. I mean, everything becomes a blank. You know, you move on to the next job, and it's all gone. You know, it's rather like when you revise for exams. You've got a lot of information which you've just taken, and then, you know, like a year later, somebody asks you a question, you really don't know what we're talking about. So it's a bit the same for me, I'm afraid.
In Andrew Zatara with the three U's, was it supposed to be that the three characters, besides the android, I guess, were supposed to be almost the same character, or were they supposed to be two completely different characters that were just happened to look the same? I mean, were you aware that you were playing, you know, were you...
Simon obviously hasn't seen the episode.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
No, well, the two characters of Romana and the android were meant to be the same person. And Princess Estrella was somebody else entirely, but the guy that Peter Jeffries played had captured my character because she looked like me.
Yeah, no, what I
think that's how it went, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
maybe you can explain.
Sorry, what I meant was how differently were you directed to play the roles, the two different roles, or did they say, well, you know, you can just do it how you want to do it?
Well, I didn't get any direction during that because Mike Hayes and Tom Baker were telling funny stories to each other, but I just did it my way, basically. I mean, to be honest, I can't remember that clearly, but I think that's how I did it. Question from Peter and I.
Forgive me if I like to repeat a question that's been asked.
We've been talking about Andrew Zatara a lot.
Yes.
Well, a bit.
Andrew Zatara.
I was actually asking people as well. Anyone who had specific questions on the Andrew Zatara before we go.
Sure.
And there were a few. I don't know if there are any more. There are no more.
One more.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering, when Tamm was speaking about the costumes and you have designed some, and so that we had the lovely white gown from the first story produced. I was wondering, were there other costumes that you got to keep, or did you purchase any for the costume department that you might have? Were there any you just never wanted to see again?
Were there any costumes Mary liked enough to keep or purchase, or did she hate them enough to get rid of them?
Well, unfortunately, the BBC has a policy of not selling its costumes to the actors. Mostly on British TV shows, you do get to buy the clothes. And in fact, I've often gone out with the wardrobe lady when you go shopping and said, oh, let's buy that because I'd like to wear that afterwards. You get a kind of discount, but they never give you anything, and the BBC certainly don't give anything away. I don't think there were any costumes that I would have wanted to keep, actually, perhaps, because, you know, they were all sort of a bit out of the ordinary. Perhaps the white dress would have been nice, but there was no way they'd let me even contemplate buying it. So even though they made 5 of them, as I said yesterday, so I didn't get a look in. I didn't get a chance. The question didn't arrive.
On the Power of Coral, what did you think of, like, the guys with the green makeup all over the place? I mean, they had problems out in the swamp with all that water keeping the makeup on and what have you?
I'm just trying to remember. Yes. Yeah, and they sort of blended into the scenery. You know. I think they did have a few problems actually. Luckily, the weather was quite fine when we were doing the bar acryls. But you know, normally I think with body makeup you get a problem with rain and what have you. But I remember they had a lot of problem getting it off, actually washing the makeup off. And they were all taken in this bus to the airbase in the evenings because we were filming near a very big airbase in England. And they were scrubbed down in the showers, and it took about an hour to get all this stuff off. So they weren't very happy by the time they came back to the hotel. They all sort of wanted a stiff drink and huddled around the fire. We have fires in England even in summer, by the way. So yeah, I think I did feel very sorry for them. It's very uncomfortable having all that stuff on all day and having to do all that washing at night.
There was also some night filming on Paracol, and there was on like a couple of other stories, I think, Sam's and Android Satara as well. Is it different conditions or more difficult filming at night, or are there other factors to be taken into account?
Well, it's tiring because if you've been filming during the day as well, usually they start you off, you know, late in the day so that you haven't been working during the day and working at night. But sometimes if the schedule's very tight, they'll ask you if you mind, you know, carrying on and doing something. So it's tiring sometimes. And also very cold because I think most of the locations we had were quite sort of cold and uncomfortable. And the night ones obviously were more cold for that reason. But I can't remember doing any night locations. I seem to have forgotten all about these night locations. You said we did some on the Bar of Krill.
When you were tied to the stake.
Oh, sorry?
You were tied to a stake and I was sort of sacrificing the life.
That was in the studio. That was in the studio, yeah. That's probably why I can't remember. Next question.
In the Stones of Blood, when you were hanging on people, were you actually hanging on people or was it?
Were you actually hanging off the cliff in Stones of Blood?
Well, of course I was. I started working as my second job. No, I wasn't hanging off a cliff. It was that was all studio. The stuff that you see at the back is back projection. But it looked good, didn't it? I mean, I saw it recently. I thought, oh, wow, that looks really, really scary.
Paracol. Any other questions on the Paracol? None.
What did you think afterlife? I mean, the main sort of monster, enormous monster, I think, was this enormous sort of what was it? Enormous octopus or something, wasn't it? And a squid or something. Of course, you never saw, but it was always on the like coming up over the horizon, the nice flat horizon. How difficult was it, and how difficult do you find it acting with something that obviously isn't there? Is that quite difficult, easy? How do they do it when you have to look at something on a green screen that is reacting to, and you're reacting to that? I mean, how does everyone cope with each other in terms of?
Just love asking questions.
you know, in terms of continuity between reactions.
Well, it's just to do with the actor's imagination, really. I mean, you have to imagine so much as an actor, really. Especially, you know, if you start off on stage, you know, you do have to imagine things off stage or, you know, in the distance. So really, it's second nature to an actor to imagine things that aren't there. So it's never a problem. I mean, that particular monster I thought was a bit of a naff. Dare I say it? There are no giant squid fans here. Maybe it should have its own fan club. But no, I always felt that was a bit of a cop-out because it never looked that great to me. You know? I mean, I don't know what they used. They used a small one, did they? Or I can't remember. Yes, well, I think models never really work unless, you know, they're being made for a Steven Spielberg movie. But yeah, that wasn't my particular show, and it wasn't my particular favourite monster. So I can't really think of anything else to say about the Power of Growth, except there was a very nice pub down the road on occasion, and we had a jolly time there every night. And that's the episode that Glyn Owen was in, and he used to do a cabaret in the pub every night. That's all I remember about the Power and Grill outbreak.
One other question about Power of Crop. Hang on, just a sec. That had Philip Maddock on it. He was playing one of the people in the refinery. Now, I've read an interview with Philip Maddock where he says he was very unhappy on it because he thought he was going for the main role, but there was a mix-up or something. He only got a secondary role. Do you remember anything about that? No. I'd ask. Nathan.
Look, I've got a frock question.
A frock question.
What did you think of the frock?
It was like this black thing with an orange tunic over the top of it.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, actually, it was the Wellington boots that I loved most. Those were the two items that I really wanted to buy for myself, you know, after doing my show. But as I said, the BBC won't sell their costumes, so I was very disappointed, and I've cried myself to sleep about it ever since.
Moving on to the next story, the Armageddon Factor was the concluding story of the season. It was 6 episodes long and all in the studio. Doing a 6-episode story, was there like any difference in recording to doing a standard 4-episode story? Or did you just do an extra block? How did it work?
I remember.
It wasn't a harder slog than usual, like...
It was just very tedious, you know. I mean, that was another story that I didn't like very much. I mean, it was as you say, all in the studio, so it was sort of endless corridor scenes and all very samey. And Lalla Ward and I used to just fall about laughing all the time. There was some particularly strange lines in that one, if I remember. Or maybe it was just that we were so bored with doing it that we sort of thought everything was funny after a while, you know, to get to that stage. But I do remember one night in the studio, well, that was Mike Hayes again. Mike Hayes had stopped telling his funny stories by this time, so I think he'd tell them all, you know. So we didn't even have that to relieve the boredom. And Lalla and I had a scene where I think was it K9 that was being pushed into some sort of furnace or something. And the guy who was playing, well, I don't remember his character name, but anyway, he's called David, the actor's called David somebody, and he had a line saying, "There'll be nothing left but slag and clinker." I mean, Laura and I looked at each other and we thought, what's slag mean? You know, what does clinker mean? You know, and every time he said it, it was very late at night, we just burst out laughing, we couldn't help it. And in the end, Michael Hayes had to banish us from the set, so we really disgraced ourselves in that one. But it was a very tedious, long, drawn-out sort of rigmarole, I suppose. I'm sorry if anybody here really loves the Armageddon Factor, but I didn't.
Does anybody really love the Armageddon Factor? I love it. Was there anything that you thought should have been done on the show, or could have been done on the show story-wise? Anything that you thought might have been interesting or good for the character of Ivana that just didn't eventuate?
Well, I feel generally that the character wasn't developed, and I think I kind of answered that question yesterday. But no, in the sense that because it's a half-hour show, you have to have somebody who's explaining and somebody who's listening, and for the audience's benefit, because my character really is a kind of reflection of what the audience thinks as well. But I didn't think that they'd pursued her, you know, as far as they could have done, because she was meant to be very intellectual and smarter than the Doctor, and in fact, she never really did come into her own, as it were. So that's one of the reasons why I left, because I felt the character really hadn't gone anywhere, and I realised eventually that it couldn't go anywhere. And I think, because again, you know, as I mentioned yesterday, the male writers writing for a female character probably couldn't, you know, expand it in an interesting way. I'm sorry, that's a little sexist, but I think it's very hard for men to write for women generally. And so, yes, I was disappointed on the whole with the way the character developed. And I think even with that half-hour format, they could have done something more imaginative, perhaps.
Because there was no, as you said, character development, I mean, you said Michael Hayes told funny stories during most of Androids of Tara. Did any of the other directors give you specific or different direction of how to play Romana that may have been different, or was it very much Graham Williams who said, play it this way and I don't care what anyone else says? Or did they just say, you've got the part, do it?
Well, very few directors ever tell you how to play a part, and producers certainly don't, because I don't think they know anything about acting, really. But I've only met, I think, one director in 20 years that's ever had any idea of what acting means. So that's very damning, I know, but they normally do let the actors get on with it, and the development really was between Tom and myself. I think that's where they do sort of orchestrate, they orchestrate sort of characters interacting with each other rather than, you know, your own character development. But, you know, you're bound by the writing in the end. You can't go off at a tangent unless it's there in the script. So again, it was down to the writing. But I suppose the one thing with playing an extraterrestrial is that you can actually do what you like with the part, and that does give you a tremendous amount of freedom. I mean, Tom was always saying that, because sometimes in rehearsal you'd start fooling around doing strange things, and the director would say, "Oh, you can't do that, Tom. We can't get the cameras over there." And he said, "But I'm an extraterrestrial. I can do what I like, you know." So he had the right attitude, and I think that kind of. I think I could have done more with it actually. I didn't think I personally did as much as I could have done, and possibly, you know, if I had gone on playing it, I would have tried to develop it myself in some way. But again, if you don't have the script to actually use your development, then it doesn't work out. Has that answered your question?
Does anyone else have any questions on the Armageddon Factor? No? Well, I've got one. William Squire played the villain in it. And apparently he was considered for being he was the shadow, the one in the mask.
Oh, right.
Remember him?
Of course I remember, of course I remember.
He was apparently considered as a recurring character, like the Master was. Could you see him making any impression? Because it was only after he had the part that the producer was considering him for a recurring part. Was there something special about him?
Well, no, I didn't think did I have any scenes with him? I don't remember. I think a couple, yeah, I didn't have many scenes with him. I mean, I do know William Squire as an actor, and he's got a very arresting face. I think that's probably why they wanted it, because he has got that sort of, you know, slightly villainous looking glint in his eye, you know, and he's got a very strong face, very strong features. But I didn't even know that there was any talk of development. I'm totally unaware of it, I'm afraid. We actors don't always get to hear about the political machinations that are going on. But yes, I think he would have made a very good running character, because he's a very fine actor and he looks great. So it's a pity they didn't develop the idea again.
Did you watch any of the following season with Lala Ward? Did you catch any glimpse of her? And if so, how did you think the character developed with her?
And I never watched Doctor Who after I read it, except when my daughter was growing up, and when she was about 5 or 6. I used to watch it with her sometimes. I think it was the Peter Davidson years that she was heavily into. And did I think it had changed much? Well, it's very difficult to actually judge something when you're in it. You can't be objective, so I really don't know. I mean, I thought it had changed quite a lot from when I first watched it with William Hartnell many years ago. I mean, that's the only time I really ever watched it. And I suppose mainly because we only had a black and white television when it was first transmitted, and then seeing it in colour was totally different. I think the first episodes were in black and white anyway, weren't they? Yeah, that's right. So I think first 6 years were in black and white. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'd only ever seen it in black and white then, and the main difference, I suppose, was just visual. And also, you know, Peter's character, I think, was quite a sort of lightweight type of doctor, whereas William Hartnell and Tamm were more powerful characters in themselves. So, yes, I did think it had changed actually. But as I say, you can't judge something when you're in it. And really watching Doctor Who, especially having a child and watching it through your child's eyes, you see it in a totally different way. So, I don't think I could ever really be objective about, you know, the two doctors all. I mean, they're all different. So. It's like watching a different program in each case, I suppose.
Do you ever watch yourself when you're performing? I mean, I know that's a standard question, but I'm interested to know if, like, you went back and watched some of your stories now. If you, if you cringed at the time, would you like them now? Or if you liked them at the time, would you not like them now? Would your reaction change with time?
I very rarely watch myself because I really can't stand it. I can do it after a long time. Funny enough, I've never had my episodes of Doctor Who on tape, and somebody taped them for me recently, like about 6 months ago. So it's the first time that I've ever had them on tape, and I sort of started playing them for Lauren, my daughter, because she'd never seen me. After about 10 minutes, she said, "Oh, this is so boring." I said, "Well, thanks a lot. You know, thank you for the appreciation." So I sort of, you know, stopped for a while and watched them myself, and I thought, oh gosh, it's really like watching another person, because it was so long ago. And I still cringe though. I mean, I must admit, I don't like watching myself, because you always think that you're coming across in a different way, or you feel something, and then you realise that when you're doing it, it's coming across totally differently. So, and as an actor, I suppose all actors are pretty, critical of themselves. You do tend to be very, very self-critical, so I prefer not to watch myself if I can help it.
You said that you wouldn't really like to come back and do the 30th anniversary story, but or anything else, but were you asked back for the 5 Doctors? Did they get in contact with you at all?
No.
Would you have liked them to have gotten in contact with you, even if like you weren't prepared to do it, just as a token?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, then I could have said no thanks, but they didn't. They didn't know. I can't remember at the time. I think probably I was away, or I do remember I was quite busy around that time. Whether or not they got in touch with my agent, I don't know. So, I mean, I really would not go back and do Romana again. I mean, I would love to play the Doctor. That's the only part that I would play, or come back as a sort of different character entirely, perhaps. But I think it was Katie Manning who said, "You don't boil cabbages twice," which is not one of Katie's quotes. So yeah, I agree with Katie. I wouldn't go back and do it again.
Do you think there's a future for the show? I mean, in the format that it was in when it was last on the screens, or in a different format? Do you think it could come back and be successful again?
Oh yes, I mean I think the possibilities for the format, I mean for any format of Doctor Who would be endless, because I mean it is you know, you've got the entire galaxy at your disposal and as much imagination as writers can make of it. I don't see why it shouldn't go on in its original format. I mean, Tom and I used to talk about this a lot, and we used to sort of say if we had the money and if we were producing the show or directing it, we'd film it and we'd have 50-minute episodes and we'd do this and we'd do that. And I think that would alter the character of it a great deal. As I said yesterday, I think the joy and the charm of Doctor Who is that sort of half-hour, you know, slightly, dare I say it, amateurish sort of thing, because the budget's so low. You know, the sets aren't all that great, and the props aren't all that great, but what it allows people to do is actually utilise their imagination. So I guess that's the joy of it, and that's why people like it. And I don't see why it shouldn't continue in that half-hour format, you know, which it has. I mean, after all, it's been successful for 25, 30 years. So yeah, I would say it would have endless possibilities, especially because of all the fans, of course.
Your season was shot and shown just after Star Wars came out. Do you think that this affected it in any way, like unfavourable comparisons? Everything was being unfavourably compared to Star Wars at the time, like.
Well, that's news to me. I don't think so. No, I mean, telly and film aren't usually compared in England. I don't know about here, but. Especially American films, you know, where they have limitless budgets and so on. I mean, everybody knows that Doctor Who has got a small budget, and by the time I got into it, it had been going for quite a long time. So, you know, I think people would have realised that there's no way that the two could be, you know, made in the same way. So no, I don't think there are any unfavourable comparisons. I certainly didn't hear them. Did you?
Blake 7 was going at the same time as well. It started up like just the season before yours was. Was there ever any rivalry there? Because apparently in things like effects, it was really stretching the resources. Did you ever notice anything like poaching of designers and directors, and there was a lot of crossovers on both shows? Graham used to complain about a lot apparently.
I must have lived in a fog during my time on Doctor Who, because I never heard about any of this. I think I occasionally heard of somebody who'd just come on the show and say they'd been writing for Blake 7 or something, but because I don't watch very much television anyway, and I haven't watched Blake 7 and I haven't watched Doctor Who, so again I couldn't really compare the two, and I'm afraid I don't know anything else about that. Sorry.
Would anyone like to ask Mary a question? Yes.
Yeah. You were saying that it's been quite a while since you've actually had any involvement with Doctor Who, and you've gone on to do a lot of things since. It must strike you as very strange to come back after all this time and talk about something that you did years and years ago, and not much about all the other things that are probably much more important to you now.
It must seem strange to Mary coming back and talking about something which happened so long ago, does it?
Well, no, because I'm kind of used to doing these conventions now. The first convention I ever did, yes, I did find it very, very strange. And I thought, what am I doing, you know, talking about this? And I couldn't believe, you know, the interest that people had in it. But I suppose I've just got used to it, and I've, you know, thought about it more and, you know, remembered more things. And I just take it as read, because I still get a lot of fan mail, you see. I mean, I've had steady fan mail over the years since I finished the programme, so it's never really left my life, do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm always being reminded of it, and the press always mention it. if something, you know, something else that I do is in the public eye. So it's just part of my life, and I suppose I'll never be able to sort of not get rid of it. That sounds derogatory, but I don't mean it that way. I suppose it's just one of those things that will always be there. So you either live with it or you don't, and I've chosen to live with it, I guess. I mean, as far as the rest of my work is concerned, it is important. It's not more important. Everything I do is, you know, important at the time. But I certainly wouldn't expect people to talk about it at such length, because it doesn't have the same popularity, obviously. And as an actor, I mean, I think some actors, you know, like to talk about themselves and work. I don't particularly like to talk about myself and my work. And you might say, what are you doing here then? But it's sort of different for Doctor Who. It's like, because it was long ago, I can almost feel as though it's like I'm talking about, you know, another person, and, you know, the character of Romana was something totally different. So I think that's probably why I do find it easier, because it was a long time ago. You know, maybe if I just finished doing it last year or something, I'd be so sick of it I wouldn't want to talk about it. So it's quite a nice reminder.
Another question, please. Yeah, Mark.
Do you have any memories about the episode of Casualty you were in?
The episode of Casualty you were in?
Yes. Yes, I did an episode of Casualty in which I played a woman who very carelessly tried to commit suicide by driving into a wall while wearing her seatbelt, I might add.
It was a Volvo too, wasn't it?
Sorry?
You were driving a Volvo.
Yeah. Smart lady, yeah? And carelessly killed 3 people in the process, which was a bit nasty. But yes, I do remember that particular episode very vividly, because firstly, you know, going back to the seatbelt thing, I had this huge, not a huge argument, but I had a slight discussion with the director about, you know, if I'm going to commit suicide, why do I have to wear a seatbelt? You know, I mean, it really is crazy. So they said, oh no, you're not insured for this part unless you have your seatbelt on. I just thought that was completely crazy. But the thing I do remember most about Casualty is it's like a nightmare, because you know, in England we change our summertime and wintertime by putting the clocks forward an hour. Do you do that here? Well, everybody said, right, you know, we were working, it was Easter Sunday, and they said, right, Easter Sunday, your call is 2 o'clock in Bristol, which is about 250 miles from London. And it's about a 3-hour drive, normally, right? And they said, now remember 2 o'clock, remember the clocks go forward, right? Remember the clocks go forward. So I was thinking, right, clocks go forward, right? So of course, I put my clock back. And instead of leaving the house at, well, I was supposed to leave at 10 o'clock. Well, I don't remember whether it was back or forward, but anyway, instead of leaving at 10 o'clock to get there for 1 o'clock, I had to leave at 12 o'clock to get there for 1 o'clock. So I had 1 hour to do this journey, and I remember driving down the motorway at 140 miles an hour, literally, and just praying that the police wouldn't see me. So that's my abiding memory of Casualty, is that mad dash down the M4.
Yeah, 2 things. So what did you do with the bill? And which bits of work are you most proud of?
What did you do in the build, and what work are you most proud of?
Well, I was saying to somebody yesterday actually that I had quite a nice part in the bill when I first read the script, and then when I got to rehearsal, a scene had been cut, and then when we got into the studio, another scene was cut. When I finally saw it, all of the part had been cut except one little scene. So it was like I played a woman again, another stupid, you know, woman who'd had her car stolen this time. And it was just a very short scene, really. But nice to do, because they're all, you know, very, very nice people on it and everything. But, you know, funnily enough, I have been up for 2 other parts since in the bill. I haven't got them, but I'm hoping, you know, to do another part, because they use actors over and over again. I mean, some companies and some programs have a policy that you can't appear in the program. Once you've played a particular character, you can't appear in it for another 2 years or another 3 years or something. I think with the bill it's a year. And I remember doing Poirot, which is another BBC series, and once you've appeared in Poirot, you can never appear in it again. They've got this policy that that's it. But we do have an endless supply of actors in England, so it doesn't matter. And which part am I most proud of? I just have a look at my CV. I don't remember what I've done. Well, I did a stage play just over a year ago in England called Why Is Here, There, Everywhere Now, which, as you can imagine, was a kind of sort of avant-garde piece, and it was for a very sort of nouveau type avant-garde theatre company that do experimental theatre. and I played Hedda Gabler, Miss Julie, Masha from the Three Sisters, and Cecilia from Six Characters in Search of an Author, all big classical parts. And we sort of condensed the plays so that there were like, you know, just the dramatic parts, and that was actually one of the things I enjoyed doing most, because I got to play 4 great classical roles in an evening, which was great. But then we went on to do other things with the characters, because then the characters became a sort of stereotype, and then they went into a sort of fantasy area. And it was a very, very interesting piece to do, and we also had a lot of audience participation, which was pretty scary. We had to go out into the audience and actually get one member of the audience and bring them up on stage. So, I mean, you can imagine how difficult that was, because I mean, people come to the theatre to watch, not to act. So that was interesting, to say the least, because, you know, every night was different. You never knew whether your person was going to come on stage, or, you know, whether you'd be left on stage and having to improvise because you didn't have somebody to act with. So that was very challenging, and I enjoyed that very much, because it really stretched me, and I did feel I did it, you know, to the best of my ability, and it went very well. So I'm particularly proud of that.
Is there any future plans for ads or films?
Do you have any projects in the pipeline, ads or films?
Yeah, I'm doing a film this year actually, which is another project I'm particularly excited about, because it's about a woman who goes back to her parents' homeland to discover her roots. And because my parents are from Estonia, it is actually set in Estonia. And I'm not playing the part of the woman who goes back, but I'm playing the sister that she discovers. And Helen Mirren's playing the lead. You've all heard of Helen. She's a fabulous actress, and I'm really looking forward to working with her. And as I say, I'm playing her sister, so we sort of have this, you know, reunion when she comes back to look for me. And that's shooting in Moscow and Estonia in September, so fingers crossed that all goes through. That's my next project. I've also been writing recently, which is something I have done intermittently over the years. I started off doing journalism, and I've also written short stories for, I'm ashamed to say, women's magazines, you know, the soppy ones with the hearts and flowers. That was a long time ago. And last year I translated an Estonian play, which I enjoyed doing, and that's going to be put on in a small theatre in London either later this year or early next year. And just recently I've finished writing a play with another actor friend of mine. We've written something together, and at the moment we're trying to get that produced. So that's the sort of ongoing project that I'm, you know, working with all the time.
Does that movie you're going to make have a name yet? Does the movie have a name yet?
Yes, it's called Letters from the East, and it's going to be directed by Andrew Grieve, who directed a film called On the Black Hill. And he's mainly a TV director. He directs a lot of Poirot. And I don't know if you've had a series over here called, oh God, what was it called? Oh God, mine's gone blank now. Anyway, he's done a lot of television and films, but he's directing that.
He's no relation to Ken Grieve, or another name of Ken Grieve. He's also a television director. Sorry, he directed Destiny and the Daleks, which is why I'm interested. Yeah.
Speaking of Poirot, how did you get on with David Suchet?
How'd you get on with David Suchet in Poirot?
It's David Suchet.
Oh.
Suchet, so you know the French darling, the French pronunciation. Oh, David's great actually. I mean, he's very intense. He's a very talented man. And he can be a little bit of a prima donna, because you know he does the French accent for Poirot. Well, he insists on talking in the French accent all day long. You know, even when he's in makeup, when he's having lunch. I mean, I can see in a way why he does it, because it's quite difficult to, you know, sustain it if it's not second nature. And yeah, I mean, he's great. He was lovely to work with, and I really got on with him very well indeed. I think he's doing his 5th series now. His 5th series of Poirot. So he's got quite a lot of power, rather like, you know, Tom had on Doctor Who. After a while, he kind of chooses the directors, and he chooses the makeup artists that he wants to have and things like that. So he's done really well. Any more questions?
Is there any character in any show that you like to play?
Is there any character that you particularly like to play?
What you mean on television or film? Or you mean a character that's around at the moment? Or I don't really have a particular character. I mean, there are particular parts probably on the stage that I'd like to do, that I haven't done yet. You know, Cleopatra, or some of the Greeks. I'd love to play Clytemnestra or Medusa. You know, there's very sort of powerful Greek lunatics. Challenging parts. Yes, I mean, anything that's a sort of big, challenging, meaty role, I think you'll find most actors would like to do that. And I'm no exception. So, apart from that, I mean, I like comedy as well. I mean, I did a comedy series for the BBC a few years ago called The Her Goodbye Man, which I enjoyed doing very much. That was with Ian Lavender. And at the time, they had written a second series, but they didn't decide. I mean, they decided for whatever reason they didn't want to do it. So I think a nice lead and a well-written sitcom would be great. I mean, the trouble is we have so many poor quality sitcoms in England. I'm sure you do here as well. But half the stuff that you see, yeah, I'm sure, half the stuff that you see really is awful. You know, you do watch it and you think, oh God, why am I watching this? It's just not funny. But it's something that has the quality of, you know, an American show called Roseanne. I don't know if you get here, do you get that? Yeah, that's the program I love. So I mean, to be able to do that and create a character that's kind of funny and zany and a little bit off the wall would probably be, you know, another ambition of mine. So, any writers in the audience that might want to write a TV series? You never know. You never know.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just kind of what kind of work you did apart from acting, some of the jobs you don't really hated to do, or really work.
Have you ever worked in anything else apart from acting? Did you hate anything?
Luckily, I've never had to get any other work. I mean, you know, times have been hard, but somehow I've managed to scrape through. As I said earlier, the only other work I've done is writing. So, you know, I've done a little bit of journalism and, you know, creative stuff. I'd love to write a book one day. That's something I you know, really would love to do, write a novel. No, I mean, that's the only thing I've ever done.
Yes.
Have you ever done any Shakespeare, some of the Royal Shakespeare company or anything?
Have you ever done any Shakespeare?
Not for a long time, unfortunately. I mean, I was asked to join the Royal Shakespeare Company to do a season there, you know, many years ago. And unfortunately, it clashed with another filming project I had, so I had to turn it down. But I would love to work for the RSC. I would love to do some more Shakespeare, but I haven't done any for years and years. So that's something else. Yes, that's something else I'd like to do.
What did you think of the Ogre in Stones of Blood?
What did you think of the ogre in the Stones of Blood? They were the rocks which moved made out of whatever they were, fiberglass.
You mean technically or emotionally? I'm not sure. I mean, having seen Stonehenge, I thought, oh no, it's not the same. I wasn't impressed, but that was another show that I thought didn't work that well. I mean, I loved working with Susan Engel and Beatrix Lehman. So that, you know, from that point of view, it was a very enjoyable show to do. But that whole thing at the end, you know, which Simon was talking about earlier about having to imagine things with the Megara, was very difficult because you were sort of looking around into these black spaces, and when you saw them lined up afterwards, it was just a sort of few little twinkling fairy lights, you know. It just didn't seem to have any presence, you know, or power. And so yeah, I think all the props on that were pretty naff actually, if you don't mind my saying. You did ask.
How, on the point, how did the ogre work in the movie?
Do you have any idea how the ogre worked? I think they were on tracks and they lit up from the outside.
Yes, I think they were.
Yeah, and the campers in the skeleton.
Oh, there was one scene where a camper touched it and they sort of turned to a skeleton. It was pretty gross. Do you remember anything about that?
Sorry, mine's gone blank.
Yes.
Did you enjoy your time on Bergerac? Is the show still being made? And your voice sounds like that.
Did you enjoy your time on Bergerac? Is the show still being made and your voice sounds a lot better?
The rest has done it good. No, Bergerac isn't being made anymore. It finished about a year ago. I did enjoy my time on Bergerac because I was staying with a friend of my husband's. In fact, it was the guy who was the best man at his wedding and his oldest school friend. And he's, you know, he knows the island really well, and he's got lots of friends there, so he took me to all the best places, you know. I keep talking about all the places I've been to rather than the show. That's all I remember, these things, you know, the pub, the wine bar. Yes, I did actually, because everybody on the show was terrific, especially John Nettles. I mean, he's a real, you know, nice, sweet guy, no ego, which is such a refreshing change. And just very pleasant to work with, very professional. And of course, you know, but Jersey's a lovely island, and you've got all the beautiful scenery, and the weather usually is pretty good over there. So yes, I did. I enjoyed my time there very much. And also, I met Alan Lake, because he was in that episode, who, you know, very sadly committed suicide. I think it was about six months to a year later. And he was wonderful. You know, he was actually one of the nicest actors I've ever met and worked with, and it was such a shame, you know, when he so tragically killed himself. And you know, it's kind of one of the sad sides of the business. But then you remember them afterwards with great affection. So it is nice. You know, you sort of get to meet lots of really interesting people, and some are nice. Most of them are nice. Some are okay. But I think, you know, I feel that I was quite lucky on that show, yeah, to work with all those nice actors.
Did you meet Terence Alexander?
Did you meet Terence Alexander?
He plays Bergerac.
Yeah, I did meet Terry. In fact, I worked with Terry in another programme called Worlds Beyond, which somebody here mentioned they'd seen.
Yes, yes.
Oh, right, yes, yeah. Well, we might just draw a veil over Worlds Beyond, but yeah, I did work with him, and I didn't meet him on Bergerac, though.
Oh, I just wondered how much he was like his character.
Oh, he's not like his character at all.
No,
You know, his accent is terribly English, you know, it's awfully. But yes, it's a very good accent that he does, because I'm from Yorkshire myself, so I'm very critical when I hear somebody doing a Yorkshire accent, but I think his is pretty authentic. And again, he's a very nice guy.
Sorry if this is terribly ignorant, but I just want to ask, did you overlap or coincide with Louise Johnson on Bergerac?
Yeah.
And on the subject of locations, were you jealous when they went to Paris the next season after you'd left Doctor Who?
Yes, I was, yeah. I thought that's just typical Graham Williams' way of saying, look what you've missed out on, Mary. No, I mean, Tom and I always used to say, you know, why don't you do foreign locations? You know, because we have got some very beautiful countryside in England, but we haven't got the weather. And also, I think it was John Nathan Turner who first went to Lanzarote. Was it? Yeah. Well, I thought Lanzarote was a good idea, because it does look a bit like, you know, another planet in places. So I think, I mean, again, it's the money, isn't it? You know, I mean, they just don't have the money to do all that. I mean, I was very surprised when they went to Paris. But there you go. Yes, I was envious. Lucky Lala.
How did you feel about seeing yourself on the novelisation covers?
How did you feel about seeing yourself on the novelisation covers?
Well, I wasn't that happy, surprised about. Now, I'm kind of used to seeing myself on various book things, because I've had other TV things that have been made into books, or, you know, the TV thing's been based on a book, so I'm used to seeing these rather strange drawings. But I don't see that many books. I mean, I do obviously when I come to conventions. So again, it's like I've kind of got used to it, and it doesn't really worry me. I mean, it's like looking at somebody else, because it is really the character. I mean, that's how I divorce myself. I think, oh, that's not really me. You know, it's the character I play. So that's how I feel.
You had trouble fitting the key to time together?
Did you have trouble fitting the prop of the key to time together? Yeah, it didn't look like it actually fitted together.
Did we actually do it on the show? Wasn't it Tom who did most of it, as usual? Wasn't it Tom who did it? And didn't I put the final piece in place? Is that what happened? Or I can't remember, to be honest. The prop guy did it, actually. The prop guy sort of lined it all up, because it was sort of assembled, and then it was just like the final piece. So I think the prop guy did have a few problems with that. I mean, we had problems with that tracer and all the segments. Don't ask me why, because they were just pieces of plastic, and they cost an enormous amount of money. How they justified it, I don't know, but I don't know, they were forever falling over and getting chipped, and they had to rush and make another one, and I don't think the pieces did fit in the end, so they had to film it from a particular angle so that it looked as if it was a hole. So yes, it's just BBC props department, love it. Not awfully good.
Yes, gone back. That's it.
I
This lady saw you in the story in English. What was something you were reading?
It was Chaucer. It was old English Chaucer, which, I mean, it was Chaucer read in an old English accent. I mean, don't ask me how they know how people spoke, you know, what was it, 800, 900 years ago. But I had to go along to the BBC and learn this very strange old English. I used to be able to sort of spout it out, but I can't now. And that's for a sort of educational program. It goes out to schools and it goes out to adult education. I think there's a tape of it now, so it's part of I think it's part of a degree course in English, obviously. And that particular thing I was doing was Chaucer, who is a very old English poet, you know, an ancient English poet actually. It's something that we do at school. That we always start off with Chaucer because, like, he was the first poet that we've got record of, and then we go on, you know, through the stages. So it's like part of our English education, I think.
Oh. Did you enjoy making your Mythmaker interview tape?
Oh, did you enjoy making your Mythmakers interview tape?
Yes, I did actually, because Keith Barnfather, he wasn't directing it. It was David. Oh God, I can't remember his name.
How?
Yes, thank you. He was very nice to work with. It was all very relaxed and informal. And
so it was all the Alice in Wonderland bits, wasn't it?
yes, we did a little Alice in Wonderland sequence, which was okay. I wasn't mad about that, but never mind. I thought, what the heck? And the guy who was interviewing me is very good. He's very, very good at interviewing, and you know, it just made me feel very relaxed. So it was a very nice day. Yeah.
So it only took one day to film?
Yeah, we just filmed for one day, yeah.
Do you have any say in where and when pictures are used? Copyright?
Do you have any say on where and when your pictures are used for books, novelisation covers?
Anything like, you know,
any sort of copyright control at all?
Absolutely none. I wish I did. I think drawings are something that you can't have a copyright on anyway. And photographs from the BBC, certainly for Doctor Who, are copyrighted by the BBC. I think as an actor, if you sort of sign on to play a particular part, it's part of your contract that the copyright for the photographs is retained by your employer, i.e. the BBC, you know, all very boring. And they're the ones that decide, so we have absolutely no say. I mean, if I had some photographs which, say, a photographer friend of mine had taken privately, and somebody wanted to use them, then they would really have to pay me a copyright. But I mean, half the time you don't know what photographs people are using, and it's pretty tedious to have to sort of chase it up. So we don't really have a lot of say in that now.
Thank you, that right. Can I ask you what it was like to work with Tom Baker, please?
Were you here yesterday?
No, I wasn't.
How many people weren't here yesterday?
There were a lot of people.
Okay, what was it like to work with Tom Baker, in a nutshell?
In a nutshell? He's not the easiest person in the world. I mean, he is very eccentric, let's put it that way. Yes, people agree. And he's had a very strange background, because I don't know if you know, but he was in a monastery for 7 years, and then he went straight into the army, so he had a very sort of isolated existence, and a very strange existence for a long time. And I think it has affected him. And he's also self-educated. He hasn't had in a nice way, of course, he hasn't had a formal education. So he's sort of self-educated, and he reads a lot, and he's very bright. But because he's had that sort of instant thing, I don't think his communication with other people is always that, solid. I don't think he wants it to be, because he's very much a law unto himself. And he was difficult to deal with, I have to be honest. But in the end, we did achieve a rapport, mainly because we share a sense of humour, and we do crosswords. We used to do crossword together, and that was very bonding, very bonding experience. He was very prickly to start with, because he didn't like the competition, to be honest. I mean, the people that had been in the programme before hadn't had very much of a high profile before they joined. But I'd done, movies, and I'd been in the Odessa Farm with John Boyd, and I'd had, lots of contracts with film companies and TV companies. So I think he felt a bit threatened, because he thought maybe that I'd upstage him in some way, which of course I wouldn't have dreamed of doing, darling. But yeah, I mean, we sort of rubbed along. We did rub along, and we ended up, we're friends now, so there's really no hard feelings. I mean, I know some of the other people who worked with him really didn't like it at all, but I did find it hard in the beginning, and after the first couple of episodes, we kind of settled in, and I found it easier. Does that answer your question?
Can I just ask you another question? Were you surprised that he didn't appear in the Five Doctors?
Were you surprised that he didn't come back and do the Five Doctors?
Well, no, because that's Tom all over. He's very much, as I say, his own person and law unto himself. And I mean, I think he was justifiably proud of the character that he created in Doctor Who. I mean, I think he was the best Doctor, and he's my favourite Doctor. And I think, you know, in a way, for him to appear with the others, he would have felt it was kind of like, you know, a lowering of status in some way. I don't know. But I wasn't surprised, no.
Another question.
Yeah, apart from this, have you come to Australia for work or holiday? Is that your first trip here?
This is your first trip to Australia?
Yes, this is my first trip. I came on Wednesday, and I'm going back on Tuesday, so it's very short, yeah. I mean, I thought, oh yeah, I'll just sail in, do a bit of sightseeing, sail out, and well, people did warn me about the jet lag, actually, and said, oh, you're really going to suffer, you know, it's a really long way, and I thought, oh, no, I'll be all right. But, yes, I have been very affected by the jet lag. And I came here specifically to do the convention, and also because my daughter persuaded me to come. She's always wanted to see Australia, so she said, you must do it, we'll go to, and you know, I brought her with me, so it's a nice trip for both of us. But hopefully we're just going to do a little bit more sightseeing tomorrow. And then sadly we have to go back on Tuesday morning, but I've liked it here very much from what I've seen, and I'd love to come back another time. And I like the Australians.
Obviously, we like you too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
How does this convention compare to the American ones?
How does this convention compare to the American ones?
Well, I almost feel as though I'm in the States, because I have done a lot of conventions in America, and some of them are very big. The only difference really with this one and the American one is size. I mean, looking at the audience now, in America it would be 3 or 4 times this amount. That's quite scary, so it's nice for me to have a smaller group, because it's, you know, it's friendlier. But I don't know, I just think people are the same the world over, and Doctor Who fans, especially, you know, you get the same sort of feel, but in America they're a bit nuttier. I'm sorry to say that, but you do get some pretty weird people. But that's the only difference. I mean, people here seem relatively normal. I should be careful how I say that, compared to the people in the States. So that's the difference. I would say the Americans are a bit more fanatical. You know, they take it much more seriously. I mean, I've had people come up to me in America talking to me as Romana. You know, they're dressed up with some, you know, weird tree growing out the side of their head. And they're sort of giving me these lines, and I'm going, what? So that's a little disturbing. But luckily, I haven't had that experience here yet. Don't do it to me, please.
Has anyone got a tree hanging out the side?
Wouldn't these people be a little surprised that you weren't the second Romana? I mean, if they think that you are Romana, I mean, would they be a little...
They know I'm the first, you know, they understand about regeneration.
But do they ask you any questions about what Romana did after she regenerated?
Oh yes, I get that all the time. I'm always being asked what it's like on Gallifrey. And what's the weather like on Gallifrey at the moment? Yeah, I do. I get asked what regeneration feels like. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? Seriously. And I get asked about, you know, yes, what did I do when I left the Doctor? And I mean, really weird question. But in a funny sort of way, it's. I know I'm sort of laughing at it as well, but in another sort of way, it is all part of what the actor has to do. So. I mean, maybe it's that I'm nutty as well, but I do find those questions quite easy to answer. I didn't make them up, obviously, but you know, you just have to use your imagination. So in a way, even though they are weird, they're quite fun, because you think, oh well, at least they've got a vivid imagination. You know what I mean? But it's worrying as well, because you think you really can't take the program that seriously. I mean, you know, you can't really think that these places do exist. Or maybe they do, I don't know.
Is there another question over here? How did you get your role on Doctor Who? How did you get the start? Can you explain a bit about it?
How did you get the part?
Well, firstly, I had a call from my agent asking if I'd be interested in going up for it because she said, oh, you know, they're looking for a new companion. And I said, oh, I'm not really interested, you know, I don't really want to run around screaming and saying, what's that, doctor? Look out, doctor. What does it mean, doctor? She said, oh, no, it's nothing like that. Actually, they're going to do a completely different concept. You know, she's going to be intelligent and she's a time lady. You know, she's on an equal part of the Doctor and it's going to be a really good part. So I thought, oh, well, it sounds different. I'll go along, you see. So I went along and I met Graham Williams and the director. The first director was George Spenton Foster. So, you know, chatted to them and I think they saw 200, 300, 400 girls, I don't know, a lot of people. And then they sort of had a short list of 6 and they did screen tests with six girls. I was one of them and yeah, that's how I got the part. I did tell another tedious, boring story yesterday, but I don't think I should go into that one now. It wasn't really that funny, was it?
This was.
Do you know who any of the other 6 girls were shortlisted were?
Any idea who the other actresses were?
Yeah, I had an actress friend, she's still a friend of mine, an actress called Belinda Main, who works mainly in America now. She's the daughter of a very well-known actor called Ferdy Main, who some of you might have come across. He does a lot of movies. And, you know, yeah, she was the only other girl that I knew. So the others, I mean, I didn't meet all of them anyway. They just sort of have you all milling around at the same time. But I didn't know that she was up for it, so she was the only other one I knew of.
Other questions, please. I have one on media band. You did a session of media band photos. How did this come about and what's been the outcome?
Yes, well, they just phoned me out of the blue actually, and you know, suggested doing this set of photographs which they were going to sell, and eventually when they got their profits back, I was going to get a sort of profit from. But I believe they've gone bust. So everybody's nodding here.
Owe everyone money.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm meant to be getting some sort of royalties from these photographs, but I really don't know what's happened. I mean, they don't return phone calls, and my agent wants to get in touch with them because he actually thought it might be a good idea for me to sell some of these photographs at conventions, but nobody knows where they are. So if anybody hears of where Media Band has got to, I'd like to know.
I think that did go bust actually. Some other actors from Doctor Who also had media band photos, and I don't think they've got anything out of it. So I was just interested how it turned out. Come back.
You mentioned royalties. Do you get royalties from the videos that go out still?
Do you get royalties from
or
videos?
Once you've been paid, is that the end of it?
Royalties from videos or repeats?
Well, unfortunately, the BBC pays very, very badly, as you probably know. And when I did Doctor Who, I mean, there were all sorts of exaggerated reports in the press about how much money I was earning, but I actually worked out that after my agent's commission and tax, I was earning £50 a week, which is $25, is it? No, it doesn't. $100, yeah. That's what I was getting. So all my repeats are based on a very, very low fee. And I get repeats when the programme's sold abroad, but when it's sold to, I mean, most countries it's sold to PBS stations, which are the public broadcast stations like the one in America. So there's a very small percentage. I mean, I've had checks from the BBC literally for 8 pence. You know, which is, I don't even know what that is in cents. So, yeah. How many cents? Yeah, 16 cents. Yeah, so I've actually framed that one. But I will eventually get repeats on videos, but it's a very, very small percentage because once they've made their money back, they then have to divide it, you know, between the actors, the director. I think the cameraman gets something. Obviously, I don't think the technicians do, but there's an awful lot of people to sort of break up all the profit too. So eventually, I think I will, you know, maybe even get £5 or £6 from one of these videos. I don't know. But I have got a few repeat fees, yeah, obviously, but not a lot. Not a lot, I'm sorry to say.
Other questions, please. Come on, there's more questions to ask.
Just curiously, I mean, none of your stories have been released on video yet. Have you been, or your agent been approached about getting permission for those stories, or is it just automatic they can release them if they want to?
They do send me a contract actually. The BBC send me a contract direct for video releases, and I think I am in one. I think it's the Tom Baker one, the Tom Baker years. I mean, I still don't know what I'm doing in it. I mean, if anybody knows, I'd be quite interested. Oh, it's clips. Oh, right. But I think eventually they are planning to release all of them on video. At the moment, the whole of the series of Doctor Who is being run on a station called UK Gold, which is a news station. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but we've had a huge argument between Equity and UK Gold about releasing, because what they're doing is they're releasing all the golden oldies, TV series that people have enjoyed over the years, literally, 20, 30 years ago. And Doctor Who's one of them, and there's been a really vicious battle going on about repeat fees because they just wanted to do a sort of very low buyout for everybody. I mean, literally, it's something ridiculous, like £5 an episode, which means I would have got something like 5 times £26, whatever that is. And I think they've reached an agreement finally about what we're going to be paid. And it's still not what you generally be paid for repeats, but it's better than it was. I'm waiting for my repeats from UK Gold. It will be better than 8 pence, yeah. Yeah, it will be. I won't be a millionaire as yet.
Just behind you.
What do you how do you see the future of British television with all the changes that are going on at the moment?
How do you see the future of British television with all the changes that are happening?
Well, we've just had a big upheaval in Britain, as you know, with all the TV channels being resold. Because what happens is that there's a franchise which is renewed, and there's bidding. People come in and they bid, and you can be a man in the street. If you have 15 million and you want to buy a TV station, you can do it. And in fact, that's virtually what's happened in a couple of cases. But there's been such a huge shake-up. The problem is that to make new programs, they're going to have to generate quite a lot of revenue. And what I didn't realise till recently was that once you bought the franchise, it doesn't end there. You have to go on paying, millions and millions every year back to actually almost lease, the TV company that you own. So they make their money mainly by bringing in, American shows and doing repeats and that sort of thing. And I don't think it's a particularly good thing for the business because it means that there won't be any new shows made for a long time until they've sort of paid back their, initial expenditure. So what's happening at the moment in England is a lot of people are doing short films. I made a couple of short films last year, and they're also making what are called deferred payment shows, which means that all the technicians and the actors and the director and everybody work for nothing. And you make a film, a short film or a TV film or whatever, and then you try and sell it to a TV company, and then when it's sold, you get paid. So that's a new trend that's happening. But I don't particularly approve of that because it means that actors who are particularly good and maybe earning more money will turn it down because they say, oh, well, I don't need this, and then you'll get some very young and experienced actors, probably some of whom will be talented, but others won't be, coming along, and the same with the technicians and so on. And I think the standards will gradually fall. I'm sure that's what's going to happen. So I don't feel very happy about the future of British TV. I might be wrong, but at the moment it's very quiet indeed.
Here's another Stone question. Yeah,
Another Stone Supply question.
Whereabouts was the location of the main house and the Stonehenge?
The Stone Circle House, what locations did you film in?
It was near Marlborough, actually. Do you know Marlborough? I think that's Wiltshire. I mean, Wiltshire's not far from Stonehenge. There's Wiltshire and there's Hampshire, Wiltshire. What's the next county? Dorset. Yeah, Dorset and Wiltshire is near what are called the ley lines in England. Ley lines are these invisible magnetic lines that people say, channel energetic forces throughout the universe. And Stonehenge is built on one of the main channels that the ley lines cross. So this particular location was quite near to that, funnily enough, because I think we actually did go and see Stonehenge either the week before or the week after. And that's in Wiltshire. So it was in Wiltshire, in England.
As you're based in England, do you freelance onto the continent or go to America to make anything else, or do plays, or do films, or you just do your own work in England?
Do you work only in England or go to the continent in America?
I have been to the States actually and done a couple of things over there, but not recently. What happens in England a lot is that you get a lot of foreign commercial companies coming over because for some reason they don't like using French, German, Italian, Swiss, Spanish actors in those particular countries because the good ones won't do commercials because there's still that thing about, if you do commercials you're not an actor, which isn't the case in England anymore. And B, that they don't really have that many good actors who will sort of fit the bill because the population isn't quite as big acting-wise. So you get a lot of commercial companies coming to London to cast commercials, and I've done commercials in the last 3 or 4 years in France, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, you name it. I've been to Amsterdam. So yes, I do a lot of foreign commercials.
No plays or anything else?
I get asked to do a lot of work abroad. I mean, I actually turn down more work than I do. The main reason is that I don't like to leave my family. I mean, if I can work in London, I work in London. If I have a location where I can, maybe take my daughter for a while, I'll take her and go for a while. But I don't like leaving home for a long time. I'll go for, a week or a couple of weeks or a month or something. But if you're talking about doing a long-running play, thank you, for something like 3 to 6 months, then I'd just say no, because it's just not, it's not that. It is important to me, but my family comes first, so that's the way I work my life.
Thank you.
Other questions, please. I have one about scheduling. You said a couple of days ago that the bill is now made 5 half-hour episodes per week, and so it's basically shooting 1 episode per day. It's a half-hour show. How do you think Doctor Who would go on that kind of rota if you had 3 different crews working on half-hour episodes and what have you?
Well, it would be very difficult to do a show like Doctor Who on that basis because you've got all the technical stuff. I mean, a lot of the studio stuff is very technical. I don't think you could get away with doing half an hour a day on Doctor Who. I mean, I'll be interested to see how they do it on the bill because I'm sure standards will drop. They inevitably do because it really is fun. At the moment, they're doing 3 a week. They do 3 a week at the moment, and that seems to produce a consistently high standard. But I can't see Doctor Who working on that basis, really, can you? It's just too fast. And I think those sort of soapy type things, it does show, I mean, then you can have a good laugh about how awful they are, but I think Doctor Who needs to have a little bit more time and effort on the whole.
Do you get a lot of time to, when you've been given a play or something else to do, even if it's Doctor Who, how much preparation time are you given? And while you're still running, are you still learning the lines like the night before you go to do a take the next day?
How much preparation time do you have for each part, and what's like learning the lines? The night before stuff.
Well, sometimes I don't learn them until just before the take, because I like that spontaneous feeling. It depends on the show, really. I think with 1 or 2 lines, you can leave them till the very last minute. In fact, Francis Truffaut, when he was alive, and a famous French film director, he used to give his actors the lines the night before. He never gave his actors a full script because he liked that spontaneity. Some actors would die if that happened to them. Some actors love to prepare and they love to have their part underlined, And some actors, I worked with Gordon Jackson in the West End, and he had his entire part on tape. He recorded the read-through with the other actors, and he played it in his car, he played it at home, because he was a very slow learner. And he said, the only way I can learn lines is to literally record them, weeks in advance. And other actors work, very quickly. I mean, I personally work quickly, I learn quickly, and I like that last-minute thing of not being very sure of the lines, because it gives me a certain edge, not to mention the other actors. And obviously, if you've got a big speech to learn, you have to learn that in advance. I mean, really, it does depend on the show. When I was doing Casualty, there was no time to learn it at all. I mean, you did get your script, but you went straight into the studio and it was shooting straight away. There was no rehearsal. So it depends on the shows. I mean, as Peter was just saying, when they do 5 shows a week, I mean, on the bill, It was 3 shows when I did my episode, and again there was no rehearsal. But when you're doing 5, there'll be no time to do anything really, and that's probably when standards do start to drop, because you can't do all of a part that way, you can't do all of a show that way. You know, you can do certain sections that way, but you see on a film you can cut and retake. But when you're running a sort of OB camera in a TV studio, you have to actually run in sequence, and then I think that does become difficult. I think the answer is that they employ actors who learn quickly. I've often been in interviews with directors, and I have been asked if I learn quickly. So I always say yes anyway. I can't imagine an actor going in and saying, no, exactly.
There's actresses like Susan Hampshire who's dyslexic and had to learn, like the temporary dimension with tapes.
Yeah.
She just cannot, she couldn't be given a task overnight. She
No,
would have to be given a task.
exactly. Whereas I say a lot of actors would hate it, absolutely hate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have you ever done a performance or something you've really, really hated, and directors have ever told you to not play it like that, or have you ever had a bad performance?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Have you ever had a bad performance that you weren't happy with, but the other people didn't feel it quite worked?
Right, have you ever had a performance that you weren't happy with and maybe other people weren't happy with as well, which you've had to live with?
Well, no, I've done a lot of performances that I haven't been happy with. I mean, nobody's actually going to come up to you and say, God, you were terrible in that show last night. People sometimes do, but as a whole, I think we're all pretty tactful with each other, and actors particularly are very tactful with each other. I mean, you do know that certain people might not like something you've done, because when they come up to you on the first night, they won't say, oh, darling, you were wonderful, you know. They just don't say anything, so you know better than to ask. And then sometimes, if you know somebody very well, you can say, oh, come on, be honest, what did you really think? And they can say, well, yeah, it was okay, but, you know, I didn't like this bit, or I didn't like the way you did that. So, I mean, I will listen to criticism from, you know, people who perhaps are close friends, or people whose opinion I respect. I think, you know, if you listen to too many people, you'll get too many conflicting opinions, really. Some people will hate it and some people will like it, and it's the same with critics. I mean, I've only had one really damaging criticism in 20 years, which I will not repeat. So, you know, they can be very hurtful, obviously, but you've got to remember at the end of the day that it's just one person's opinion, and for every person that likes your performance, somebody else is going to love it. So you have to really try and take it philosophically and be, you know, thick-skinned. But luckily, as I say, I haven't had anything really that's upset me or damaged me too much, apart from, you know, 1 or 2 things, which you know, is inevitable over a career of 20 years.
Are there any other questions for Mary?
Yeah, is there any actor or director who you've not worked with you'd particularly like to work with, like Kenneth Branagh or anybody in particular?
Are there any actors or directors who you particularly like to work with?
Well, I was a great fan of David Lean's, but unfortunately, as you know, he's dead now. It was always one of my ambitions to do a film for him. I like Nick Rogue's work. I'd like to work with Nick Rogue. In fact, I did meet him for a movie once and got on very well with him, but it didn't work out. Yes, theatre-wise, I suppose, yeah, Kenneth Branagh's very interesting, I feel, as a stage director. I mean, I know everybody's raving about his film stuff, but I think he's a better stage director, and I'd like to work with him. It's difficult to say off the top of my head. Steven Spielberg. I do like his films, actually. I'd love to do a sort of adventure film, you know, just really be over the top and maybe a bit silly and just have fun. Theatre-wise, there's quite a lot of very sort of young new theatre directors in England who, you know, got very exciting reputation. Whose names I've just totally blanked on now. I'm thinking about it, but I'm bad on names. But I think the couple I just mentioned were, like, you know, the main ones for me.
Other questions? Daniel.
How did Kroll work? The squid and the power of Kroll?
I think Mary answered this question earlier. It was a model. It was a model.
Oh.
And then they just sort of matted it onto the screen.
What about the
separate tentacles, you know, like grabbing from Baker and
Was it funny working with, like, you know, things like prop tentacles and that wrapping themselves around?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, we had one of those tentacles in the studio, didn't we? But you see, the lucky thing with me is that I'm short-sighted. If I take my glasses off, I literally can't see in front of me, so that anything really awful, you know, looks pretty real to me. So not only can I use my imagination, but you know, things don't look as bad to me as they do to other people. So I suppose I'm lucky there. So yeah, I mean they're quite good at the BBC, you know, with their props and things. They do make things when they've got the money, you know, reasonably well. So yeah, I think that tentacle was quite good myself.
Other questions?
I'm not going to wind up soon with Fiona. Is there time? So if you have any questions, please. 5 minutes.
Are there any other questions?
Final questions.
Yes.
Just there? Oh,
yeah, we'll just go to the guy up back there.
With your writing, what sort of items would interest you in writing? Science fiction?
What kind of writing? What kind of writing interests you? What kind of genre?
What do you mean? Writing a book or writing a book? I think that's the difficulty. That's why I haven't written a book yet. Because they do say everybody's got a book in them. I did start thinking about writing something that was semi-autobiographical, and then I just got so bored. I thought, oh, I can't possibly carry on with it. But I just don't know. I mean, I think you can either try and write to a formula, you know, try and write a sort of, say, a Mills and Boon type romance, or you know, one of those best-selling romantic stories. And I think if you set out and try, you could pretty well write to a formula, or you could try and do something that's very, very original. And it's sort of like sitting around waiting for inspiration. You can either wait for the inspiration to come to you, or you can just, I mean, everybody has said to me, if you want to write, you just have to sit down and write. It doesn't matter what you write, you just get down by your word processor and start doing something. I guess I've just been putting it off, you know, for whatever reason. But the play I've just written is about big business in the City of London, and that's sort of come about really because my husband has just been working in the city, and also the actor I'm working with used to work there, so we've concocted this play about what's been happening in the city recently and the recession and all that sort of thing, and that's a black comedy. So I think humour is quite important. I think what I'd eventually get around to probably is something that's quite humorous, I hope.
Would you ever write science fiction or, say, a futuristic play?
No, I don't think I would. I mean, I'm not actually a great science fiction fan. I will read science fiction, and I have read science fiction. I like Douglas Adams' stuff. But I don't know, I think you've got to have a particular kind of imagination for that sort of thing, and my imagination doesn't run in that direction, so I don't think it's for me, no.
We had a final question.
Earlier you said you enjoyed working with the tentacles and the power of control.
Did you say you enjoyed working with the tentacles?
Are there any other creatures that you wish you had worked with? You just missed out on the Daleks? Did you want to work with anything else?
Did you want to work with anything else, Daleks?
Well, I always found the Cybermen pretty scary, actually, so I wouldn't have wanted to work with the Cybermen. But yes, I would have liked to work with the Daleks, because I always thought they were kind of sweet. You know? And, you know, everybody said, when I said I was doing Doctor Who, they said, oh, great, you're going to work with the Daleks, oh, that'd be fun. So I thought, you know, that this was going to be, you know, the big thing in my life, working with a Dalek. But it never happened. But yes, I would have liked to have worked with the Daleks.
It might have been another of Graham Williams' things that he should have stayed. The first story after had Daleks in it. Okay, that's the last question. I'd like everyone to give a big hand to Mary Tamm.